Hello, and thanks for joining me on another episode of the Tech Exec podcast. I'm your host, Aviv Ben-Yosef, and today we'll be talking about first times. You know the saying, there's always a first time, and it might sound corny, but it is true. And I'm not talking about you specifically being a first time VP or CTO, that's something for another episode. I'm talking about the fact your organization is going to go through many first times. It might be, if you're a founder, that you're hiring your first engineer. It might be having the first second engineer. And you know what's that? There's something very different between getting on that first engineer who's going to be writing the code and having the first person to actually join the team and learn how to work with the existing code. There's the first team that you're creating. There's the first manager, the first lead of leads in your organization, either if that's you or if you're hiring someone for that position. And there are things like we are getting the first mobile engineer, the first data scientist, the first machine learning feature, the first time you're deploying at a client, the first time you had a big outage, many first things. And you might be tempted to simply go with the flow, but what I see is that the leading organizations are organizations that embrace every such first time as an inflection point to grow, not just winging it. You might have so many things going on, but I never want to hear you say, yeah, I know I should have thought what I'm going to do with that new team lead we hired and what they will need to do on their first day here, but I just didn't have the time. I never want to hear you say, we just had our first week of on-call, but we didn't really nail it down. We say, let's see what happens. I don't want to hear that. These are precious points in your organization's life where you can make a big difference. When things are changing is exactly when you need to use your power here and use it to boost things. Again, this is an inflection point. When something is changing, you can use that and make everything better. When you hire a person and you do not set them up to have a great onboarding, you end up getting them to perform at, say, level 10 in 2 months, and from that point on, they're not likely to ever get higher than a level 20. Numbers don't mean anything here, I'm just talking about scale. And you just might have had that person come in at a 25 had you set them up for success when they were in their first 2 months that made them who they are in your company. The way to handle first times is to plan ahead exactly how you're going to do this. It doesn't always have to be you specifically that comes up with the plan, but you need to have a plan in order. This means that whoever is involved comes in and sees that there is a quality bar here. We do not just wing things. And this matters. This is important enough that we have actually taken the time to consider how to perform this. And we might not do it perfectly, but we're trying to do our best here. And using that plan, you will execute on it, you will keep a close watch on it to see what happens and have a tight feedback cycle. I've talked about feedback cycles a few episodes back. What you want to make sure is that as things progress, you learn, because you're going to have mistakes or stuff left out of your plan, and that's okay as long as you learn from it and you make sure that your plan gets better for the next time, so that your first time is likely going to be the hardest one, and then others are only going to get better. What you're getting here is this extra focus that makes you maximize the organizational learning for the next time. Sometimes it even makes sense to document it. When you're hiring someone, if they get an onboarding document, even if it's not complete, they will feel better about entering what's missing in it, as opposed to having someone be hired and telling them to write the onboarding document as they go, or 2 months later before the next hire comes in. when you promote someone to be a team lead or an engineering manager, you can help them be a better manager. I have an episode called Setting Managers Up to Succeed, and this is exactly that. You have to plan for their success. You have to make sure that you know how they're going to be operating in that first week. If you're doing your first reorg and changing, for example, to work in a cross-functional manner, you need to have a plan about how things are going to look. If you're adding, say, a process like Agile, Scrum, Kanban, whatever, you want to have a plan in place so people know how their new, say, 2-week iterations are going to look like. When you're going to deploy for the first time at a big client, you want to have a plan and you want to be prepared for how things can go wrong and how you're going to treat them. Will you miss a bug? You bet you will. But that does not mean that you need to come in unprepared, saying, come on, no one has time for that. That's exactly the attitude that's going to make you suffer every single time and not just the first time. Putting these plans in place is what makes you a professional. And again, let me stress it. I'm not saying that you, as the tech executive, have to do all of this by yourself. That's not the case. But you are in charge to make sure that these plans are put in place, that they are improved on as things are executing, and that, again, you maximize the learning. Because this is something that your whole organization can learn from. This is an inflection point. You can get major leaps if, whenever you're doing these things, you do it in an intentional manner. This is kind of like deliberate practice. Only that this isn't practice, this is the first time you're doing something. But you have to do it in a deliberate manner, so you learn from it and you improve. Your takeaway from this episode is to take 2 minutes, think what's the next first time thing, what's the next first time instance that's on your organization horizon right now, and decide who should be in charge of making sure that that has a proper plan in place and that that plan gets improved on as that will happen. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to send me an email. It's in the show notes. I invite you to sign up to my newsletter. Again, link in the show notes. It goes out every week. It has a link to my article, this podcast episode, and exclusive insights I'm not sharing anywhere else. And you get to see funny pictures of me every now and then. Till the next time, thank you for joining and talk to you soon.